Have you ever wondered why some people emerge stronger from their worst moments? Why certain tragedies destroy some while forging others into something unbreakable? There's an exact moment, a turning point, when you stop being the victim of your story and start becoming its author. Carl Jung discovered something revolutionary. We don't become our best selves by running from darkness, but by embracing it, diving into it, allowing it to teach us what light alone never could. What you call breaking. The universe calls building. What you name as ending, existence recognizes as beginning. And over the next 12 minutes, you're going to discover how to transform any pain into power, how to read the signals that life sends through suffering, how to decode the invisible architecture of your own transformation. When Job lost everything, family, wealth, health, it wasn't punishment, it was preparation. Preparation to carry something infinitely greater than his possessions, something only an emptied soul could contain. Neuroscience today confirms what ancient wisdom always knew. Brains in crisis create new neural connections 300% faster than comfortable brains. Pain doesn't paralyze development, it accelerates it. Think about the last major upheaval in your life. In that moment, as the ground crumbled beneath your feet, you felt completely destroyed, lost, identityless. But it was exactly there, at that ground zero, that you began questioning who you really were beyond circumstances, beyond labels, beyond the social masks you wore without realizing. There's a fundamental difference between two questions. Victims ask, "Why me?" Warriors ask, "What is this for?" The first paralyzes you in the past. The second propels you toward the future. Pain carries codes, encrypted messages, instructions for a version of yourself that hasn't been born yet, but already exists in potential. Every tear is a stepping stone. Every sleepless night is a lesson. Every moment of despair is an invitation to release what you're not and embrace what you've always been. The universe doesn't waste suffering, it invests it. Joe Dispenza spent 20 years of his life studying people who completely reinvented themselves after profound trauma. His discovery was fascinating. Extreme stress forces the brain to reorganize radically, literally creating a new version of you. This isn't metaphor. This is pure neuroscience. When your 10-year relationship ends, it's not just the end of a partnership. It's the total collapse of an identity that only existed within that dynamic. That's why you look in the mirror and don't recognize yourself. That's why your own reactions surprise you. You're not lost. You're being recreated. The human brain is like a muscle. It grows under pressure. The strongest neural connections form precisely in moments of greatest emotional instability. That's why years of therapy sometimes matter less than 3 months of real crisis. Think about who you were before that rupture. Now look at who you became after. It's not the same person, is it? It couldn't be. What seemed like devastation was actually construction. Controlled demolition of what no longer served to make space for what truly matters. Your brain wasn't being destroyed. It was being updated, upgraded, prepared to process a reality that's more complex, more profound, more true. Trauma reorganizes neural architecture, and that reorganization always points in one direction: greater capacity for presence, deeper emotional intelligence, clearer sense of purpose. When the prophet Elijah was at his breaking point, exhausted, hunted, ready to give up, he climbed Mount Horeb searching for God. He expected thunder. He expected grand signs. He expected loud answers. But he didn't find God in the earthquake. He didn't find him in the fire. He found him in the gentle whisper, in the silence. Jordan Peterson teaches that all chaos precedes higher order, that all confusion comes before deeper clarity. God's silence isn't absence, its concentrated presence. Those endless months when your prayers seemed to hit the ceiling and return empty, that wasn't divine abandonment. That was recalibration, like a radio losing tune with a weak station to pick up a frequency that's clearer and purer. Silence isn't empty. It's space being created. Space where the ego can't scream, where anxiety can't echo, where only your essence, your deepest truth, can finally be heard. It's in silence that you stop talking to God and start listening to God. Stop making requests and start receiving instructions. Stop demanding external changes and allow internal transformation. The universe whispers, not because it's weak, but because it's intimate. Not because it's distant, but because it's too close to need to shout. When you learn the language of silence, you discover you were never alone. You just didn't know how to listen. Paul of Tarsus didn't become history's greatest apostle, despite being Saul the persecutor. He became Paul precisely because he was Saul. His conversion didn't erase his past, it reframed it. Carl Jung called this the death of the ego, not the destruction of personality, but the revelation of authentic identity that was always there, hidden beneath layers of expectations and social performances. Think about how you used to introduce yourself before the crisis. I'm John's wife. I'm the director at such and such company. I'm the perfect daughter. I'm the family provider. When those definitions crumbled, when those labels were forcibly stripped away, you had to learn something terrifying. How to say, I am, without additions, without identity crutches, without external validation. That moment of not knowing how to define yourself, that's not the end of who you are. That's the birth of who you've always been. The death of the false ego is painful because it clings to illusions as if they were real life. But underneath it, underneath the masks, the social roles, the performances, there exists an essence that cannot be touched by circumstances. When you stop trying to be who others expect you to be, you can finally discover who you actually are. And who you actually are is far more interesting than any character you tried to play. Freedom doesn't come from getting what you want. It comes from discovering who you are when everything you wanted disappears. If this message is resonating with something deep inside you, subscribe to Faith Before. Here, we explore the spirituality that transforms, not just the kind that comforts. After the resurrection, when Jesus appeared to his disciples, he could have returned with a perfect body. No marks, no painful memories, but that's not what he chose. He kept the scars. And when Thomas doubted, he didn't offer arguments. He offered evidence. Put your hand in the wounds. His scars became his credentials. There's an authority that only survivors can carry. It's not the authority of theoretical knowledge. It's the authority of lived experience. When you share your story of overcoming with someone who's walking through the same darkness you've already crossed, they don't hear theory. They hear testimony. James Clear observed that the best leaders aren't those who never failed, but those who transformed their failures into applicable wisdom, who learned to speak the language of pain without drowning in it. It's not the psychologist with the diploma on the wall who impacts someone in depression the most. It's the person who hit rock bottom, touched the floor, pushed hard, and came back to the surface. Breathing. Your wounds aren't defects in your character. They're windows into your soul, places where light enters more easily, where empathy flows without effort, where compassion is born naturally. You don't need to hide your story to have credibility. Your story is your credibility. Gideon had 32,000 men when God said, "That's too many." He reduced it to 300. Why? Because God knew something Gideon hadn't learned yet. Less ego means more divine flow. Quantum physics confirms what mystics always knew. The act of observing changes reality. When you stop resisting what is and start accepting what's becoming, everything shifts. It's not passivity, it's intelligent repositioning. Remember that moment when you finally stopped fighting the situation? When your strength was completely drained and you whispered, "Your will be done?" That wasn't surrender. That was alignment. Like a swimmer who stops fighting the current and discovers it carries him exactly where he needs to go. Surrender is the universe's most counterintuitive strategy. You win by losing. You grow by getting smaller. You find strength in weakness. You discover power in vulnerability. Joe Dispenza proved in the lab. When we stop trying to control the outcome and start trusting the process, our electromagnetic field stabilizes. Heart and brain enter coherence. And in that state of active surrender, miracles happen. Not as magic, as alignment. Viktor Frankl survived the Nazi concentration camps, lost his entire family, all his scientific work, his identity as a respected psychiatrist, everything. And it was there, in the darkest place of human experience, that he discovered the truth that would change millions of lives. Those who have a why to live can bear almost any how to live. Joseph didn't interpret dreams despite being a slave. He interpreted dreams because he was a slave. Prison didn't break him. It prepared him to become prime minister. David didn't become king despite fleeing from Saul for years. He became king because he learned in the desert caves that true leadership is born from humility, not force. Look at your life today. Notice the people you help, the problems you solve most easily, the conversations where people trust you most. It's no coincidence that it's exactly in those areas where you suffered the most. Your greatest pain became your greatest ministry. Your test became your testimony. Your wound transformed into a source of healing for others. The universe doesn't waste trauma. It converts it into calling. It's not that you got over what happened. It's that you learned to use what happened as fuel for something greater. Your story of breaking became a roadmap for those still lost in the darkness. And here's the most beautiful part. You're not guiding people to you. You're pointing them toward the same presence that guided you through the night. The difference between those who break and those who break through isn't in the intensity of the pain, but in the interpretation we give it. Start today. The next time something doesn't go as planned, ask a different question. Instead of, "Why me?" ask, "What strength is this building in me?" Instead of, "When will this pass?" ask, "What did this come to teach me?" The next time God seems silent, remember, sculptors work in silence. The noise comes later when the masterpiece is ready to be revealed. You're not being destroyed, you're being sculpted. And the architect, he knows exactly what he's doing. If this message touched something deep within you, subscribe to Faith Before and hit that notification bell. Leave a comment telling us which insight impacted you most. And if you know someone who needs to hear this today, share this video with them. Here at Faith Before, we explore the spirituality that transforms, not just the kind that comforts. Faith that builds bridges from mind to reality, from the inner world to the visible world. Until the next video, remain in the faith that comes before the miracles.